Started. Today we're going to be talking about self-regulation, but I want to introduce ourselves first and get this thing off of my my screen. Okay, so I'm Darlene Hansen, for those of you who don't know who I am, and I'm a speech and language pathologist, but I work with DVU on the empowerment team who hosts this Communication Access Connect every month. And I am technically a senior citizen. Uh, if you want to put me in an age category. And I have shoulder length, grayish hair. I wear red glasses, red rimmed glasses, and I am a white woman. So I'm going to now pass us off so we can get the meeting started, but first introduce to William Del Rosario. William, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is William Del Rosario, and I am a Hispanic Filipino male in my 20s with short black hair, brown eyes, and I wear glasses. I'm an intern with DVU and a multimodal communicator who uses augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC, via typing and my iPad. Thank you for making the time to be here.
Great, thanks, William. And then today we have Nina is back. Nina, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Nina Spiegelman. I'm the policy director for DVU. For reasons about this very subject, I have had to take a bunch of time off to help my 29-year-old son who has autism and a lot of self-regulation issues. But I love being part of hanging out with the communications team here, and I'm really looking forward to today. And for description, I am, no technical about it, am a senior citizen, and I'm totally good with that. Gray hair, wearing black as always, and I just had cataract surgery, so I only need glasses for reading now, sorta. So I'm getting used to that. Anyway, really glad to be here, and all right, let's go.
Thanks, Nina. Well, and then we have our two translators, David and Lorna. Now, in regards to the translation, if you could go to your lower screen and find the interpretation button, which looks like a little world globe, or it might be if it's not there, it's going to be under the more for you, and click on the button or more. If you click on the more button, you're going to see the word interpretation. Please pick the language you prefer to listen in. Don't assume it's English just because you don't pick anything. Pick the language you prefer to listen to, and then that way you'll only hear that language. Okay? If you have any questions or wants, feel free to put them in the chat. That's where Eric will help us out. All right. So today I want to introduce a friend, old friend, and a colleague and counterpart, I guess, Dr. Ben Russell. And Ben is a psychotherapist in our Southern California community. He's worked with autistic adults and their teams and providing all kinds of support to understanding how to foster independence and autonomy. And through communication, he does a lot on communication as well, really respects that, the significance of that. And he's going to tell you all about all the other pieces of his life that are important for this conversation. But I invited Ben because I wanted to have somebody speak on self-regulation. I think in everything we do for communication, self-regulation and the ability to stay present and regulated and keep our emotions in check impacts our ability to communicate. So whoever we are, wherever we are, however we communicate, that's impacting our lives. And in the world of the autism, we often talk now about self-regulation and strategies and supports and when we're experiencing that versus when we're experiencing something else. So I wanted us to have some conversation, and hopefully we can all engage in the chat or in person here. We can bring you on live to share ideas and philosophies and stuff. And Ben and I are used to going back and forth, so I might interrupt him because that's what I do. So Ben, take it away. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm counting on us having some dialogue. So I have a few points that I'll just start us off with, but yeah, I'm Ben. I'm a clinical director for a company called Positive Development that is doing relationship-based, developmental relationship-based intervention, working with insurance companies and regional center. I also have a little bit of private practice and work with folks with self-determination, kind of helping guide families and teams with self-determination. And I'm really passionate about that work as well. And been directing programs, providing supervision, oversight for teams doing developmental work for over 20 years now. And really have enjoyed working with Darlene and lots of great speech therapists and occupational therapists in multidisciplinary teams, and thinking about self-regulation always. So I have 5 points that I want to kind of ground us in. These 5 points, different aspects of self-regulation to think about, and then we can all have discussion together about self-regulation and its importance for communication in particular. So I just want to start with saying self-regulation is not about willpower. Self-regulation is about brain-body connection. It's self-regulation, I think of it as really happening in the body. It's embodied experience and of integration in our system. I think of our body, our nervous system as a system. I think about it a lot of times in terms of mathematics of systems and how that works. And self-regulation is when we are an integrated, organized system. And that's when we're able to think most clearly, act most intentionally. But it's about that brain-body connection rather than about willpower. It's about managing our emotions, managing our attention, our impulses that come up, about processing stress, managing stress, and again, kind of along the same lines. It's not a fixed skill, but it's a state of being. It's something that we can get better at and practice and get support, but rather than being something that we like do by will, it's more of a process and a state of being. So that's point number one. The second thing that I want to say about self-regulation is that it is a developmental process that emerges in our life through relationships. So when we are safe in relationship with other people and we get to be ourselves and learn who we are in connecting with caregivers and with other people in our lives, our system, our body learns to regulate itself, to self-regulate, to be calm, to trust itself, to know what it's like to feel safe, to know what it's like to recover from stress, and to trust that process. We talk about co-regulation a lot in the field of psychology and in developmental fields. This co-regulation is when more than one person, we can talk about 2 people, we affect one another's regulation. If I'm interacting with somebody and I'm anxious, it's more likely that they're going to pick up on my anxiety and feel more anxious. If I'm calm, if I, maybe they're anxious but I have the feeling that things are going to be okay, my response with calmness, thinking that things are going to be okay, to their anxiety will be calming for my communication partner, and they'll be able to sense like, okay, I feel anxious, but Dr. Benz seems to think that things are going to be okay, so maybe they'll be okay. So my system calms down, their system calms down. When we feel understood, when we feel soothed, those are regulating experiences that happen in relationships for all people, as Darlene said. Oftentimes when like Nina referred to having extra challenges with self-regulation, oftentimes when people have extra challenges with self-regulation, we need to be really deliberate and and aware and consistent in our co-regulation. It doesn't, like, most of the time we co-regulate without thinking about it as a thing. We're relating to people all the time and co-regulating all the time, not really thinking about it. But when we're with somebody who has more challenges with self-regulation, and maybe we're in an overwhelming environment, being very aware of co-regulation can help be supportive. So that's my second point is, and oh, actually it's not. I want to say a little bit more in the second point, in that it's developmental. It emerges like from birth, even before birth, over the first years of life in the context of those caregiver relationships. And it starts to emerge as through stages. I've spent my life studying and teaching and explaining, but we know specific stages of regulation that develops in somebody that's experienced through co-regulation with others in childhood and throughout life. So first point was it's not willpower, it's brain-body connection. Second point was it's developmental through attuned relationships. The third point is movement, sensory input, body awareness are core tools for self-regulation. The two things that I've learned from working with hundreds of people on the autism spectrum over the years that have been the feedback I've gotten, what's most helpful is movement and music, or movement and rhythm maybe. And so I really want to emphasize the importance of movement and body awareness, sensory input, kind of along with movement as core tools for self-regulation. Sometimes movement is seen as a distraction. Sometimes movement is discouraged in a person who's trying to self-regulate, but I see it as really critical to support self-regulation. So something like rocking, fidgeting, pacing, maybe a need for deep pressure, all support self-regulation rather than being behaviors to stop. The nervous system uses movement to stay balanced, to stay embodied and integrated in our body. Supporting these sensory helps, prevents shutdowns, meltdowns, chronic stress. So we want to utilize movement for somebody to support their own self-regulation. So movement is the third point that I want to talk about for self-regulation. The fourth point is that regulation supports grow with you over time. So self-regulation is a lifespan journey. And sometimes our needs change. A young child really depends very heavily on co-regulation with caregivers, and then they move into a lot of need for a lot of movement in childhood, and in adolescence they may move into need for peer relationships or mentor relationships with adults for regulation. So it looks, and then as adults, we have different needs for regulation that we're all discovering and learning and evolving in our lives. Access to therapy, access to daily routines, developing self-advocacy skills are all important aspects of self-regulation that support us over time. All right, my final point.
Sorry, say those again, Ben. The
Oh,
access
the
to
therapy,
therapy. Okay.
routines,
Routines.
self-advocacy skills,
Self-advocacy. Okay.
communication
Yeah.
skills, and included in self-advocacy skills.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm just trying to write down some of these highlights for people.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the final point is self-understanding and self-compassion are lifelong tools for self-regulation. Of course, self-understanding and self-compassion support self-advocacy, which is really important. But self-compassion, like when we are compassionate with ourselves, it's much easier to cope with stress, much easier to cope with unexpected changes and things that come up when we don't have our routines, when we're patient and compassionate with ourselves. So it's just helpful for us to be able to be in our bodies and feel good in our bodies. And self-understanding, of course, is like very critically important for self-regulation over the lifespan, knowing what triggers us, knowing what supports us, being able to know how to find the movement or the music or the communication, those tools that help us feel better in our body and be able to calm ourselves down under stress, being able to know those things and have the communication self-advocacy tools to ask for them or find them when necessary is obviously very important and sometimes like not overlooked. I try to build self-understanding, self-advocacy, communication for self-regulation needs into all of my treatment plans, as a psychologist, because I think that's the foundation of being successful throughout our life. So learning our sensory profile, learning, those recovery strategies that help us, and like going back to point 4, that they'll evolve over time. So we're relearning, what are the new triggers in our life? What are the new recovery strategies? Knowing that we're not broken, we may get overloaded, we may get stressed, we may have a moment of meltdown, but we can recover. And being compassionate with ourselves and knowing that we're not broken, we don't need to be fixed, we just need a moment to recover and to use our regulation tools, helps us internalize the acceptance, which we need co-regulation. Talking about acceptance takes me back to co-regulation. I think it's hard to learn acceptance without feeling accepted by others and having experiences of co-regulation, but it reduces stress and it's a known support for long-term mental health.
So true.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to cut you off, but Young Ha
That's
has
it.
a question here. Okay, good, because I'm like, okay, I'm writing down all these notes for myself. But Young, you want to go first? Did you want to say something out loud? I'm going to unmute you. I don't know if Young raised hand on purpose or not. Okay. If you, oh, here's, okay, maybe. No. All right, never mind. Okay, good. Okay, so if you have questions, raise your hand or put in the chat. But I got stuff that I wanted to talk about with Ben and have him bring up to us. So many things. And Nina, you probably do, and William, you probably do as well. Anybody can, right? But I think that the whole idea that self-regulation is a brain-body connection, and it's an emerging relationship process that we have. It's not something that you have to have willpower, because I think that when we try to treat those or support those self-regulation needs with behavioral strategies, personally, when I see that happening, this is why it's counterproductive. Because I feel like to think of it as something that you can just change because you just were told to or reinforced to, that's thinking that, oh, this is a willpower thing. You just got to be motivated, right? But that's not where it's coming from in the first place. So then you just keep making it more and more upset, right? So I love the idea, and I think it's so important for us all to really kind of grasp that self-regulation is about the brain and the body connecting. It's in, I tell people, I don't know if this is wrong or right, Ben, but I tell people, if you're too dysregulated, and especially little people, because they can't, not really little, but like middle schoolers, because they might not have a whole list of strategies yet for themselves. But I start it with, okay, you got your brain and you got your emotions. Something's in charge of your body right now. It's your emotions. We got to get your brain back in charge. And then we just work at it from that framework. And then when they can start talking about their emotions, then we start building out more effective stuff for them. But they do get that. Like, your emotions are in charge right now. And I'm trying to have a conversation with your brain, or trying to do something with your brain here. Let's get that back in check. And just that alone sometimes is helpful. But I don't know, what else did you want to add about the brain body connection, Ben?
Well, as you're talking, thinking about the brain body connection, the idea of willpower, I was thinking about like all the work that I do with people to support that brain body connection. And I think movement is really critical to develop the brain body connection. I think self acceptance learned through co-regulation and attuned relationships with others is really important to develop that brain body connection. Practicing communication is a brain body connection that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So just being intentional about opportunities to make that connection. Play in general is integrative for our system, for our brain body connection, and is really important. And lots of research showing the importance of play in early childhood for developing self-regulation.
What about for those people who are currently children or have grown up and moved on past that children, who don't motorically, and I think of it as a motoric thing. I don't think of it as a cognitive thing, but they don't develop those play skills.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you see for those individuals as their way of developing co-regulation, if play is
Yeah.
important for co-regulation, right?
Yeah. Well, and I forget that play can mean different things to different people, and sometimes it's really put into a box of like playing with the toys in childhood. But when I think of play, I think of movement in general. I think of laughter. I think of art. I think of um, doing things that you love to do with other people.
Connection.
That might be Candyland, or that might be going for a run or something.
Well, I've been thinking like a lot of the kids, for example, like to do tickles, and just the connection that you get from that process, that's play, right? It's a sensory thing sometimes for people, but it still is, it's an emotional connection that you're getting with that person, that you're having that experience with. So I think that it doesn't have to be a play with. I used to go to families' houses when we had Toys R Us, and I'd say, "Oh, we have Toys R Us at their house," and it was all work to the kid, right? It was not play, because a therapist would come in and teach them how to play with those toys. But I think the relationship play really is what you're talking about. Even if it's a funny banter back and forth, like I have a friend who she'll say do do dee, and then you're supposed to say newt and a. They're not real words, but that's what you're supposed to say. And for her, that's her connecting with you, you know? So I think that's important. Laura, you have your hand up. I'm going to unmute you real quick, or ask you to unmute. Go for it, Laura.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, it takes me a while to get on mute. Yes, I love that what you're saying about play being movement or art or expression. So, am I taking this correctly when I'm thinking that even when we have our non-speaking adults or that can get dysregulated, and we're creating that relationship with them as either as therapists or communication partners, that play is important for you as well in the co-regulation process. It's learning how to enjoy being together, being empathetic, soothing, or even playing card games or playing games to get that level of regulation so that we can work on communication or we can work on being better communication partners. Am I correct in thinking like that?
Yeah, establishing a shared sense of safety and trust and connection, and building from there around interests and ideas, and it's all yeah, building the connections and the integration for self-regulation. All of it is. And Darlene brought up tickles. I have a whole talk that I go into with my staff when I hear tickles.
Uh-oh. It
Tickle,
was the first
I
thing that
won't
popped in my
I
head.
won't get into the whole thing, but tickles is a powerful co-regulation tool. It can be very dysregulating.
Yeah.
It can seem like it's regulating, but actually be dysregulating, even though it
Right.
seems like it's regulating, because upregulating somebody and they're laughing, but it may be that they're getting overstimulated and over like activated. Their system is going too fast from it, and it's hard for them to slow down. So to use tickles as a co-regulating tool takes like very, very careful reading of cues. So it's a interesting example because it really gets my mind into what happens in co-regulation, and it's people reading each other's nonverbal cues to understand, is this person bored or are they overstimulated? And how
Good
can we
point.
tell? And how can we tell when those cues are sometimes confusing or subtle, or that we don't notice the cues? So to be a good co-regulator, we really have to learn to read the individual's cues, and we have to learn to read their system and understand the system. And what does it mean for a system when it's bored? When I'm bored, what does that mean, and how does my co-regulator like find a way to upregulate me that's not going to overstimulate me? So anyway, tickles really is an intense example of that for me. I
Right.
think it takes a very high level of subtle cue reading to do co-regulation well with tickles.
The same thing happens, I think, on the trampoline, especially with the kids as they get older. Then you're like, okay, that's a little too much trumping, and then they're dysregulated. Especially if it started off as a little kid regulation thing, and then as you got older, it just got bigger and bigger for you, and now it's dysregulating. So I think, yeah, you're very right. There's one thing's the connection, but then the co-regulation part, you got to really pay attention to that. Okay, I have Christine is asking, she says she's struggling right now with her, I can't read that word, but son, 25. He's a non-speaking person who's acting out when he cannot get help, emotional or pain. He doesn't have the internal gauge of knowing when to stop before it's out of control. This holds true everything he does, his OTPT and speech path. Know this about him. Any ideas on how to work on that critical gauge to stop the behavior from taking over? And if you
Well,
want to read that, it's at 423.
yeah,
That post was.
I
Oh,
found it.
it's a
Yeah,
long one.
thanks. Well, it's going to be different for different individuals. I think really looking at movement, deep pressure, rhythm, potentially music are some of the first things that I try to pay attention to. Is there just a need for no input? So, if I were to do a consultation with a question like this, I would just start asking a bunch of questions to get more information, because I don't know the individual at all. So but those are areas where I would start to ask and questions and then experiment. And you may feel like you've tried everything. I imagine that you really must feel like you've tried everything. And so it does continue to take more experimenting, and sometimes you don't find an easy answer. But working with the co-regulations. Another thing to be aware of is rather than putting your energy and intention into, okay, how can we fix this? How can we prevent this? How can we help him have the tools? Really give myself the tools to make sure that I'm able to stay calm. And that might help like everybody in the whole situation as well.
That's a great tip too. Great. Okay. I'm going to go to another one here and then bounce around because I got things down right here. Okay, so William, you asked, when we hear the, do you want me to say this for you, William? Let me read this.
He's got it in his device. Hold on.
Oh,
a
okay,
second.
you do it. Okay, good.
Okay.
When we hear the word apraxia, we often think about apraxia of speech. For me, apraxia affects my whole body. My brain knows what it wants to say or do, but sometimes it just can't. Before I can communicate, an important first step is for me to get regulated. It helps for others to have patience. I may need extra time, or the opportunity to become adjusted in a new space. My communication partner can also help me beforehand by coaching my motor through warm-up exercises, taking a walk or other movement. Understanding my body and how to coach my motor with as much or as little support I need is something my communication partners and I work on all the time. The important thing is that they presume I am capable. I must also presume they are capable too. Trust gives us both confidence to try new things as lifelong learners.
And then you added on here, when we do crossing midline high-low fives before spelling or typing. That was what you did when you were first learning to get regulated, I guess. That's what you're saying. Did you want to comment on William, Ben?
Well, William, I mean, that's where I learned from is all the Williams that I've worked with that have helped me understand, what they need, and working together, problem solving together, movement and rhythm, and walking is both. The high fives sounds like combining some of both movement and rhythm to help be in the body and have self-regulation in the bodies. Thanks, William.
Yeah, that I'm looking at, as usual, William, when you say things, I have to like think about all the words you said. I think when you're talking about presuming competence, it goes back to the whole willpower, willfully doing something versus needing something, and self-regulation and needing some support of some kind. And when we presume competence, then we can see the difference there, right? Nina, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess first I just wanted to say, like, I could listen to this for forever. I wrote down every single word. I mean, I've, heard a lot of these concepts, but it's such a great it just so clearly like set out. Thank you so much. But I guess I had a question on that push-pull of the importance of the sort of soothing aspect. First of all, let me just say, I'm like the worst co-regulator. I think about it all the time. I know I'm not supposed to be reactive. I'm an epic failure. Just that's my mindset right now. But anyway, but I do think about this a lot, and I see, the value, the importance, the soothing quality of like schedules and routines. I get it. However, of course, life, undermines those with regularity, and the need for flexibility and adaptability is also there. And this tug, like trying to resolve that tug to help, resolve that tug. I think my son in particular, I think he's always trying to preempt it. I think not even deep down, he knows like everything, his precious routines are fragile. So if he constantly talks, his communication, challenges, if I constantly repeat my schedule over and over, I'm trying to, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do as the co-regulator at that point, besides jump out of the nearest window, but I haven't done that, or say some horrible thing, which he will absorb. So, but it's reached kind of very, well, in anxiety and his incredible intuitiveness, he senses when, you know, a storm is coming, sort of. So it just anything that you can say about kind of how to balance those things, you know, the rigidity and the flexibility, but the need for the understanding. And I'm sympathetic, the want, the need for predictability, you know.
Well, building up some awareness of circumstances when things are unpredictable and then you guys are okay is important to be able to build up that tolerance for changes. Talking about changes, I mean, I don't know if this is going to be helpful for you and your son, but with kids, school-age kids, I like to do social stories about changes and transitions and unexpected things, because that is a big part of life and it can be very disruptive. And so preparing for those and then remember having some positive, successful experiences, coping with them, and then building on that and remembering that. So when we're afraid of losing our routine and then we're ruminating on keeping the routine and then the routine changes, like we've already lost because we're scared of losing that routine. So sort of starting to turn that narrative towards like, sometimes we won't keep the routine. The routine keeps us really calm. Yes, if we lose the routine, it's going to be hard. But starting to have a narrative of it's going to be hard, but we can figure it out. And we've had some positive experiences. So that's one idea. Another thing is how.
Wait, I have to stop you right there, Ben.
Okay.
Because, okay, so for all of you who don't know Ben as well as I do, it sounds like because he's very calm, and so he's just saying, so just say that the routine's changing, and now it's going to be okay, you know. But that is exactly what Ben says. I've heard him say it so many times to clients. so so it might take practice to get that trust that it really means it, but it really is saying, I mean, I seriously have heard you say that so many times to people, and then they start problem solving it, you know. So kind of take that in and don't throw it out as, well, that just sounds too simple. Because it does take practice.
Yeah, and preparing. So that's why you have a social story or you start to talk about it, because it's not just like once it happens, then we're trying to cope and scramble and we're anxious about it. But you prepare yourself, and then when the moment comes, like you have your tools, like, okay, we're going to try to use these tools, and maybe they don't work this time. But you're in a learning process and you're working on it outside of the moments where you lose the routine, instead of trying to keep the routine all the time, which, I mean, you can still do that because it's helpful, but you're also aware that you can't always do it and preparing for when it's not going to happen.
I love that.
The co-regulators are preparing themselves as well, not putting that on the person with self-regulation difficulty, but putting it on themselves to say, okay, what are my tools that I need to use when this happens?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go to Kathy, and then I'm going to go down to the chat here. So go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, I was just gonna piggyback on the routines. When Darlene knows this about our son Philip, when he would do a specific activity, he like over and over again, he'd want to do it because it was an activity that he loved. So we would do it, but he would get stuck. I mean, life just stopped for him if he didn't have that routine. So I had to do my due diligence to always keep things fresh. Like if it was, Monday through Friday routine, we would go to a library. Say that was, his community integration was going to a library or going to a bookstore or going out to eat. So he would be part of the creating of the schedule, but we would pick different libraries in different areas. So he was still getting to go to the library, but it wasn't the same library. It was a library in a different city or today, only McDonald's on Fridays. We're not going to have McDonald's, all the time. But, I can give him McDonald's on Fridays, but might be twice a month. It's not all the time. So I would have to be very diligent about creating the schedule with him involved, letting him know what the schedule is going to look like, and really having him have a voice in it really helps him to be flexible in his routine, but and also not get stuck. And now we just kind of talk through being in a routine. Like, okay, so are you really fixed in this routine? Or like, are you in the cement? Are you in the mud? Or are you in the sand? Can we kind of move fluidly through this? Are you flexible like in the sand or we can move you through this? Or are you in the mud? Or are you in cement? And sometimes he'll say he's fixed, that he just doesn't want to change that routine. Like if he's in the mud, he might need increased supports. Sometimes he might even need medication because it's like he can't get through it without needing that medication. Like it might be like a trip to go give blood. He has to be medicated prior to doing that. So he can go through that process, but he might need a little bit more to get him through that new routine or that new situation until now he's more fluid in the sand and can be flexible. So those are some strategies that we've used and they've really worked really well. He's going everywhere into his community. He's just not hard, fast anymore. He's not in the cement at all. He's flexible and fluid in the community, which is amazing. So, and he's having those life experiences that are enriching him. And my point to the staff is, we encourage him along, and wherever you're having problems, come back to me. We'll problem solve, and we're going to make sure every outing is a successful outing because that's the only way he's going to build, build his self-esteem that he can do it is when he's properly supported and things are, we're working through issues. And so I just wanted to say that's been beneficial and I hope that helps.
Yeah. I love how, Kathy, that what you're teaching and supporting for Philip is that what Ben was talking about, that self-understanding and self-compassion. Like all along, it's like, here's some information for you to know about yourself and about your response and about your needs and about how we can help you and all these different pieces. But he's learning about himself at the same time. And I think that goes to what you were saying as well, Ben.
Yeah. Another thing, in listening to you, Kathy, is I hear multiple levels where you're doing co-regulation together, working on the schedules together, like you're figuring things out together. So your son, and it sounds like from a couple of things you said, you're actively adjusting your level of support if there's more support needed and assessing together what level of support is needed. Are you in the cement or the mud or the sand? So you're together co-regulating in the level of like what's your self-awareness of what level of support you need, and then figuring out like, okay, what supports are we going to use? And so you're doing it, the co-regulation on a macro level, but I'm confident from what you shared that you're also doing it on a micro level where you're watching the cues and understanding the the affect and the activation and when things are going to be getting stressful and how you manage that together.
So great, thanks. Ken asked, how do we balance, I like this one. How do we balance leverage on use of technology, smartphones, visual learning, video games, and build in more movement, physical outdoor play for regulation? $1 million question.
Yeah, question of the century.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have an answer?
No real answer, Ben.
I
No,
have
like, oh, this always works. You don't have that one. You don't have this always works.
I mean, I actually, if I retire from my current work, I imagine starting a practice where I do consultation on media and development and childhood and screen addictions.
Well,
So
I think the screens, you know, the people use them to co-regulate with, right? But then if it's going fast, you're co-regulating in a fast mode. And all of us can do that, right? All of us are doing that. So it gets dicey, but it you kind of have to, I mean, we all have to have a boundary for ourselves on it
yeah.
if we're going to stay healthy, right?
And you mentioned co-regulating with the screen, but the screen provides a different kind of co-regulation and feedback than a relationship with an attuned person. ChatGPT is a little bit like in a gray area there, but some people are co-regulating
Well,
with
don't be dissing my
ChatGPT
best friend, my best assistant ever.
yeah. But but the screen is pulls us out of our body and our relationships and our self-regulation. I think it's an alternate to self-regulation. It's an external regulator. And so it's more of an experience of, I mean, this word has a lot of meaning for people, so sometimes I use it and people are reactive, but I think of it as a dissociative experience because it's dissociating from our body ourselves. So it's not saying there's trauma involved, because dissociation is related to trauma the way it's used a lot of time, but it's disconnecting us from ourselves, putting us into this visual, external, highly structured world that's very regulating, but not self-regulating. It's an external regulator, and then it's hard to shift out of that, and it can become very addictive. So it creates a lot of problems and challenges for regulation. So it is really important to have more a balance of movement and physical activity. I used to have parents just have screen time breaks. So I just 2 weeks, no screens. Let's see what happens. It's an experiment. Let's like really do it for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, let's see what we want to do, because, you know, how did the 2 weeks go? But I don't even pretend like that's realistic anymore. Screens are such a huge part of our lives, and we're not going to be able to eliminate them. So it's, you know, I can work with a family to start to find a balance and take kind of one step at a time. Like, can we eliminate screens in the car or at meals, or maybe one place in our daily routines where we don't have screens, and then building from there. But that can be extremely hard too. And then for some families, you need to learn a collaborative communication approach to even get started in making progress. So everybody's in a different place with, you know, their relationship with screens and the meaning of screens and their culture of their individual family. So, but I would definitely say we need to be paying attention to it and trying to have, you know, an appropriate level of balance for our family culture and our family expectations.
Yeah, it's a dicey one for sure. I think, yeah, building in, I mean, if you can, however you do it, the idea of building in movement and outdoor activities um, is a good stepping away kind of a uh, process and a thing to try to get. I just know it's a big struggle, the big struggle for everybody. I'm going to go to Deborah Rexler. She wrote, can you speak to the idea that developing awareness of our unconscious reactions, such as Porges' neuroception, unconscious reaction, is so important to know about ourselves as caregivers, support persons, teachers. Things we are unfamiliar with can alert our nervous system unconsciously. I think that was all she said. Yeah. Such that we do not co-regulate well. And that was at 425 if you need to look at it. Important to know that ourselves as caregivers, things we are unfamiliar with can alert our nervous system unconsciously such that we do not co-regulate well.
Yeah. Well, I love Stephen Porges's model and the idea of neuroception and I mean, co-regulation. Stephen Porges is like, it's It's all about co-regulation and nervous system to nervous system, unconscious communication. Another very, very similar model that I teach and use in all of my thinking is affect regulation, and which is also all about co-regulation. And at the heart of Stephen Porges' model is this idea of the social engagement system is an aspect of our nervous system that learns co-regulation through the social engagement system. So really, foundational to what I was talking about at the beginning. But then what happens for us is we have our own traumas and memories, and I really like a model called Circle of Security. It's a simplified way of teaching attachment theory and parenting. And Circle of Security has a concept called shark music. So then they have it, if you Google shark music, Circle of Security, you can find a short animated video that talks about shark music. But like, say, as a child, I got lost and had a trauma of getting lost at the park. And so like, I've got that like deeply embedded unconscious fear of my child getting lost at the park, because I had this traumatic experience getting lost at the park where I was terrified and I didn't know if I was ever going to see my family again. And so when I take my child to the park, I think I'm just taking my child to the park, but when I'm there, I'm like paranoid, like, where's my child? I'm like won't let them, I want to put them on a leash. And that's my shark music, and the video is like the dun 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 dun. When I get to the park, it starts going, and that's my unconscious. And I may not remember getting lost at the park, so I don't know why I'm being so controlling and frustrated and getting angry at my kids when they, go play behind somewhere that I can't see them. But the shark music is causing that, and we have all kinds of ways that our experiences in our own childhood come up and make moments hard for us when we're co-regulating with other people in our lives that we don't even know where they're coming from.
That's a good. I'll have to look that up. Shark music one. There's a little bit. People are talking about music therapy in here.
Mm-hmm.
And William, did you want to say yours, or do you want me to read it? Do you have it?
My music therapy has helped me find how many beats per minute work for my rhythm. We use a metronome or songs with that many beats. I also started using a vibration plate. I start my day with movement each morning.
It's a good tip. I got to try that vibration plate thing out. I keep looking at those. Um, I have clients who use the music therapy who have developed, and William, you know these people, music lists that go for different things. Like if I need to get more arousal in my life, then I'm going to play this music list, playlist. If I need to calm down, I'm going to play this list. If I'm just feeling like I'm in a really good, content state, then I'm going to play this list. Um, so they're using they've developed these playlists to actually be part of their self-regulation strategies. And they've learned to pick the one they need based on what's happening internally. So they did that with a music therapist. So I don't know if you can just do it on your own or not. But yeah, that's, I think, a good thing. I think Kathy
Yeah.
wants to talk about music too. I'm going to bring Kathy on too, because I think she has something to say about music.
I was going to speak about the screen time.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Darlene, you taught us a long, long time ago about guided access. And
Yeah.
because it was a necessary thing that we had to have for Philip. So we use guided access on the weekends. He doesn't get any screen time until after 12. So that means his bed's made, he's eaten his breakfast. He doesn't have the angst that he's going to get it at any time. So we have a cutoff time. So he has to be doing like his chores and things that he needs to do to be, you know, self-sufficient and self-reliant on the things that he needs to do. So like during the week, he's busy all week long. So at nighttime, he gets to have his screen time. I don't bother him because after an 8-hour day, all of us get to watch TV and do whatever we want anyways, right? But I don't have to regulate him because that's just something that he does. The one thing I do is I put it on a 30-minute. So he'll have to come back and have me give him more time. Or if I need him to do something, I can say, okay, it's on hold right now. Let's go do this together, and then you can have it again. He really doesn't want to be on screen time, but he doesn't know how to use his time and think of things to do with his time. So he goes to screen time because he has no internal ability to come up with these skills.
Right.
So I brought the behaviorists in, so we have behavior intervention. And so one of the things that behavior intervention does is appropriate screen time. So he gets onto YouTube. He does exercises on YouTube. He does drawing pictures on YouTube. So he can draw animals. We've even done line dancing on YouTube. So it's up to the behaviorist to develop leisure skills for Philip so that he can have different things that he can do that doesn't involve screen time. And so then he can, you know, build in his repertoire of, or his toolkit of activities that he wants to do by using some of those things. And so sometimes I've even said, let's take a break and here's like 5 things. What would you like to do? And he'll say, a puzzle. So we'd do a puzzle for 10, 15 minutes, and then he gets to have his screen time again. So
Mhm.
I'm just saying that's what works for us. Him in the car, he'll have his phone and he'll want to be on screen time, but it's not safe to have his phone on in the car and the radio on. It's just too distracting. So I say, you can't use the phone in the car. So he's never had to want the phone in the car because we've never allowed it because for safety reasons. So it's like he already knows his boundaries, so they're clear boundaries. And so
Mhm.
that's always been very helpful for him because he's that kind of guy that needs that. So just that it
Yeah.
should.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy.
Mhm.
I have Alvar wrote. Alvar, do you want me to read this for you? I'm assuming. Usually I read it for you, but I don't know if you printed it out. I'm going to go with it. Alvar, get on here if you're going to. If you stop me, I'll stop reading. Okay. Alva writes, in my experience, sensory sensitivity has been a huge barrier to body-brain connection and a significant cause of dysregulation since the pain of sensory overstimulation or understimulation makes the connection undesirable outcome, oftentimes. Also, the distrust of my own body from the demonization and denial of my sensory needs rather than accommodations of them for most of my life also increased that disconnect. Compassion, deep pressure music has been helpful to me, movement as well, more so in the past. Before that's been limited, rocking was my jam. now now Alvar spends a lot of time in his wheelchair, or not moving around a whole lot, I'm thinking. So okay. Thanks, Alvar. Any comments, Ben?
Yeah, it's I mean, again, it's very similar how much these deep pressure, movement, compassion, music really are a theme that people find helpful for self-regulation. So thanks, Alvar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is, you know, I feel self-conscious talking about brain-body connection uh, to a group of people that know how painful that the brain body connection can be with sensory sensitivities. But that is self-regulation. And so having compassion with that and knowing that we're doing the best that we can and learning the things that help and going to compassion, deep pressure, music, movement to see the ways that they can help us and incorporating them into our daily routines.
Yeah. Just as a side note, Alvar also added his AAC system and anybody's AAC system should not count as screen time.
Yeah.
Okay. So it should always be available as your communication system goes. Yeah. What else was it? Let's see. Gotta get up here again. Okay, Deborah wrote, changes in routine. One thing that we do that helps is to preview wherever you can, the change is coming. Like having a change routine, that is a routine. It is especially helpful for my son to have a visual way to change previously written schedule. That's where social stories come in too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually noticed that comment and wanted to comment on it because I think practicing changes in routine, practicing those variations can be helpful. And then we can use that to build the confidence and to remember we've been practicing this. When it happens and we didn't plan it, it's going to be harder, but we know that we've been practicing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Elizabeth wrote, we use the tools of stage management in theater to assist with the issue of our twin adult sons. We use 15 minutes, 30 minutes to change hour warnings, activities, just kind of preempting things, right? Letting people know.
Yeah. Yeah. With ending screen time, I'd like to have that be like a dynamic. I mean, it's gotta be firm. But sometimes like when the timer goes off and then you take the screen away can result in a meltdown. So I like to coach us through how do we slowly, like, okay, the timer went off. What are you doing right now? How much longer is that going to take? You know, can you wrap it up? Can you pause? Have an interaction around that rather, because just pulling a screen out of somebody's hand can be very dysregulating.
Well, and I think that brings up a good point too, that some people have to do that completion. And so if you stop just because the timer went off and the game isn't done yet, then that's going to be dysregulating because they needed to finish that game.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you're not going to win if this is a power struggle. You're not going to win. It's going to be that because it's still in their head that they did not finish that game yet, even though they might have been ready to leave, but the game didn't finish. Right. And then of course the taking it away thing, we have to remember it's much, 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 much better to say, okay, let's agree that we're turning it off here and pass it on, rather than try to always, always avoid the takeaway. Because that can get into some power struggles that creates then a trigger for you're going to take it away. And so I have to, hoard it in a sense and guard it, which is then it becomes another issue. Christine's saying we had to take away the computer. He's been without it for a year now. We had to stop TV now. Same issues. Yeah. Oh, I'm not sure if that was someone trying to talk. Carrie says, I think all children need to go out and play, not on the screen. Yeah. Tommy said music makes sense. Williams and Tommy are talking about the balance plate. Alvar corrected at me. I meant compression like a tight undershirt, not the compassion is helpful too, for sure. Okay. Well, compassion fits in the conversation too, Alvar.
Yeah.
But the sensor wise, the tight shirts. Yeah. Carrie says, music helps me write better and faster. And Debbie says, self-direction during free time, leisure skills. We use whiteboard with a list of possible things. that my son likes and that are engaging for him. He picks what he wants independently. And Elmer says, I've heard it called a dopa menu from dopamine and menu, which is very funny. Um, that is kind of funny. A dopa menu. Let's create a dopa menu for you. Yeah, very cool. Okay, now I got to go back up here and because I know there were things I wanted to bring up too. The whole, I don't, what's your take, Ben, on the whole idea that our regulation supports change over time? You know, I've heard people say, well, he used to be regulated and like going swimming when he was 8 and he's 50 now. You know, and he's not wanting to go to the pool anymore. And then people are like, but he likes it. And you're like, no, not anymore. Um,
Yeah.
so how have you seen that happening and how should we observe it?
Yeah. I think there's certain things that are patterns, and you know, we can kind of anticipate to some extent. But another thing that I think is helpful is just to recognize it in ourselves. Like we're like all of us, our self-regulation changes over time, and the things that help regulate us change over time. But, you know, at one time in our life, maybe we need coffee, and then later coffee makes us overstimulated and agitated.
Mhm.
But when younger children need more vigorous movement and vestibular, which is like swinging, jumping has a lot of vestibular movement, spinning around has a lot of vestibular movement. Vestibular input can become dysregulating at some point. And I've often seen it happen very fast, where somebody who wants to spin a lot and gets upregulated from spinning and has like really nice interactions when they're getting a lot of vestibular input, one day like will get overwhelmed from the spinning and not want to spin anymore. So vestibular input is something that definitely changes as we get older, and adolescents don't tend to want as much vestibular input for that big upregulation. They like different kinds of experiences. They may still want to have like activating experiences, but a lot of times they might be more social or you know, even like online social gaming can be activating and fun for adolescents. Um, and so moving away from more embodied kind of upregulating experiences. Now, movement and embodied experience is still important for regulation, but it's just changed.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Um, how was I gonna, I didn't know how I was gonna word this next idea I had for you. Um, I think because we talk a lot, this is about a group of us get together because we're talking about communication. But I think when you talked about acceptance equaling co-regulation, you know, and then self-advocacy and all of the things that we want to help adults be, and even, but we have to start listening to people as kids, right? And start modeling and cultivating that kind of back and forth that goes to we're on this together, this co-regulation together. I think that's so important for people. And I'm just wondering, or thought maybe get some ideas together on like how do we do that? How do we get comfortable with acceptance and not feel like we're giving in, right? Or not feel like, or like, what is my role if I'm just supposed to always listen to him? Like people take it as, some people take it as, well, I guess I'm just supposed to listen to him. He gets to make all the choices. And that's actually going to backfire. Um, well, how do we talk about that?
yeah. Um, well, a couple of concepts are helpful for me in thinking about it. One is shared control. There's a speech therapist that has a book that talks about shared control. James McDonald. I don't know if you know his book, Darlene, but
Mm.
really emphasizes that shared control is half, like for each side of the communication. The book's called Communication Partners. And each side of the communication partners like need to own their half and also allow the other person to own their half. So we're 50% investing our intention and our ideas, and we're 50% listening and taking in the other person's ideas, and then we're collaborating. So the other tool, which I mentioned earlier, that is really important and I think wonderful to learn and to actively learn and practice is collaborative communication, or collaborative problem solving, sometimes it's referred to. And really taking the time to listen and to hear the other person's perspective and understand, ask questions, doesn't mean that we're going to just do whatever that person has said. In our DRBI model, we follow the child's lead a lot of the time, but we don't follow the child's lead somewhere dangerous, or we don't follow the child's lead into inappropriate, non-functional things that aren't going to be helpful. But we want to understand, like, how is this helpful? How is this necessary? And maybe we can find a different way to get that same function or to get that same need met that's going to be more acceptable to everybody involved sometimes. Or maybe something is just like a certain yelling may be really helpful for me to feel grounded and calm and regulated, but in a classroom setting, nobody else is going to be able to learn if I'm yelling in order to regulate. So we need to find some other way to regulate, or find some other place to yell, or find those compromises. And so I think that using collaborative problem solving, we can say, I hear you, but this is everybody else is not going to be able to focus if this is happening. So we have to find some kind of compromise so that everybody can get their needs met.
Yeah.
Does that answer partially?
Yeah, I mean, it is about giving choices, giving options, compromising together, and that's where, the work that we do in communication is so important, because everybody needs a means of communication so they can be a part of that conversation. It's not that they're not understanding it. That's actually sometimes, I think, the worst thing to assume is that they're not understanding the situation. Because when you're not in, any of us, when you're not informed, it's much bigger of a problem, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of worries, or however you want to call them, happen for individuals who are non-speaking as well. And if we don't think that he understands or she understands, then we tend to not inform them, and then they come up with bigger worries. So having a way, even if it's a whiteboard with choices on it, to just kind of check in with each other and to inform and then check in. And maybe the person's not able to express everything that they're thinking or feeling yet, but that checking in part is valuable. It gets you a lot of connection and trust.
Yeah. Sometimes people have to learn how to do that with individuals that they're communicating with, or they're caring for, whatever the relationship is. Sometimes it's not obvious, and it feels to somebody like, well, that's not going to work. But I would send them to you or to somebody who can help them learn supported decision making, learn, active communication, listening with somebody that might not be able to just say it.
Yeah. I think, yeah, some comments here. Deborah says it's reminding her of the PCP Foundation, important to, important for. And Christine was saying, this is just a question about, have you seen a decreased regulation long-term wise after COVID? That's saying that's when most of her struggles for her individuals started. I haven't seen a difference.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people after having COVID have long-term effects.
Right, and that's what she's asking. Do you think that there are some people that we're living with that who have had a long-term effect that's affecting their, I'm
Yeah,
guessing, regulation?
yeah. I have seen that sometimes.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay. I also, what came to my mind, Christine, was that your person is getting older. And you mentioned, I think, that your person's non-speaking. I think you were the person that said your person's not speaking. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But if that is the case, when you're non-speaking, if you don't have a means of communication, you're going to get more frustrated as you get older. Yeah. So it can become just a thing because I'm still thinking about things and I can't express them, right? And so then I get frustrated. So in the last few minutes, Ben, this is the $1 million question too. We're not paying you $1 million though. How do we train communication partners to pay attention to regulation? Do you have any? I should have told you this ahead of time, but do you have any tips for this?
Uh, well, so what I do in supervising staff is watch videotape. It doesn't have to be watching videotape, but I'll just use it as an example. We really looking at cues and thinking about, is this person engaged? You know, what ways are they communicating? Like with videotape, it's very powerful because you can slow things down. You can pause, you can rewatch, you can really work to understand what the cues are. A lot of times, if you're in an interaction with somebody and you watch it later with videotape, you realize how many cues you're missing.
Mhm.
And you can start to see those cues and get more sensitive to understanding cues. And the more cues you can detect and respond to or acknowledge, and I mean it might be unconscious, automatic, quick way, but the more that you're picking up on those cues, the better co-regulator we're going to be. So I mean, I have a rubric that I use with looking at like how regulated are they really? Are they checking out? Are they a little over stimulated? Are they, you know, in and out of regulation? You know, how is my regulation? What was I thinking about in that moment? So it's like going through regulation, going engagement, nonverbal communication, problem solving, verbal communication, looking at all of the systems and where somebody's at and what their needs are in that system, their visual system, motor system, auditories, like in all the sensory stimulation that might be contributing to regulation or dysregulation. So, you know, really go through all of that. And, you know, I use a rubric, but you could just really start paying attention and thinking together with your um, staff or your communicators. Like there's a word that has always really resonated with me since I learned it, mentalization. And it sounds like jargon. So I'm trying to, I probably use a ton of jargon still, but I try to stay away from jargon. But mentalization is a jargon word that just resonates with me so much that being able to mentalize another person's experience. So practicing, what does it feel like to walk in their shoes? What might they be thinking? What might they be feeling? What might be happening for their sensory systems? What are they trying to communicate with their actions? That's the training that I do, is just really learning to pay attention.
Yeah, just that. That's all. It's that easy. No, it's a hard thing. Um, and I think it's a hard thing. There's certain people, like we're all different, right? And so there's certain people who don't see the cues in themselves.
Yeah,
And sometimes people don't see it on the outside. And, and that's where the videotape does help because you can stop and say, right there, did you see that right there?
yeah,
That's what's happening right there. But I think that's the important piece to, especially if you're going to be a good communication partner, right? You gotta support the individuals. So you have to recognize the need before it starts, right?
Yeah.
Gilda's got something too.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, learning to give choices. You're really amazing at recognizing how to give choices and taking advantage of a moment to create choices and give choices, and training and how to do that. Thinking about that and being intentional is important too.
Yeah, Gilda, let's unmute you.
Hi, Ben. It's so good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I feel like this is an important topic, and I remember many years ago when I was working as a support staff and as a supervisor for a day program and working on floor time therapy, I had to record myself. And there's so many communication cues that you often miss. And so watching the recording was tremendously helpful because then it helped you really pay attention to those communication cues or things that we often miss because we're so distracted as individuals. And so I think the recording, videoing, and watching yourself and watching your person that you're communicating with and helps you really see some of the communication cues that you miss. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, thanks, Gilda.
Thanks, Gilda.
Anybody else? I'm looking to make sure I got everybody's on here. Um, okay, before you go, Ben, and if you know about this, we're gonna have you back. So if you don't want to come back, say you don't know anything about what I'm talking about. Um, but in a nutshell, what do you think about pathological demand avoidance, PDA? Have you been studying that? Have you been thinking about that, incorporating
Yeah.
that?
We got a big audience for my nutshell on PDA. I have different responses depending on who I'm talking to.
Okay.
So I um really am triggered by the phrase
Oh, me too. I
pathological
hate that
demand
word.
avoidance.
I
So
just call it PDA because I don't want to say the
yeah,
words.
yeah, or pervasive desire for autonomy.
Yeah.
So I just will call it pervasive desire for
Yeah.
autonomy, persistent desire for autonomy, something like that. And there's some
Yeah.
names that have even been uh, put in the literature to kind of rename it, rebrand it. But what I've found in my experience is that it really resonates with a lot of people when they find it and they say, yes, my person is pathologically avoiding demands. Like they can't handle any demands, and this is destroying our life. And so that moment that really resonates is then a beginning to learning about what it is and getting exposed to the literature and starting to realize like, oh, my child's experiencing overwhelm and their system is freaking out and shutting down and it can't handle things. And what's actually going to be more helpful is to be patient and to learn certain supports and um, uh, become listen to like what are they communicating with these behaviors, and like somebody mentioned a screen, and I mentioned collaborative problem solving, and that's Ross Green's model. And so, maybe reading Ross Green and starting to learn how to implement that. But then that is a journey from, our life is falling apart because of the demand avoidance to saying like, oh, there's a name for it. There's literature on it, to starting to be exposed to literature and then learning to be more patient and understanding, and then finding that, oh, okay, this is starting to help.
Mhm. Well, I think that you and I'll have to have a coffee over this, and then we'll talk about it some more because I think it's what we're experiencing with non-speaking individuals some of the time, and I can't quite figure out how to make it work as as a support strategy. Like how does that thinking help us rethink how we're engaging? And so I'm I'm sure there's something in there. I'm sure there's something happening. I just don't know what to happen. Um, well, Ben, thank you so much for speaking and sharing with us today. This has been great. Hopefully, everybody at least got a little Ben Zen going on and relaxed for the hour and a half themselves to get yourself co-regulated. But great tips in here, and I think hopeful strategies and stuff too. So thank you for that a lot. All
Thank
right. Yeah.
my pleasure.
I know that Vivian wants to announce something. Wherever you are, Vivian. Eric, if you can bring Vivian on. And then Gilda, you're talking about stuff. So Gilda, you want to go first? Oh, hang on. Go. Sorry.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Gilda Hito, and I'm the Director of Outreach and Leadership Training here at Disability Voices United. We have our ambassador program applications open, and our ambassador program is for people with disabilities served by regional center and for family members. So if you're interested in getting involved with DVU and becoming an ambassador, we are currently looking for ambassadors within all 21 regional centers, and we have an informational meeting on July 30th from 5 to 6. So if you're interested in learning more, I'll be hosting an informational meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Gilda. And then where is Vivian? Oh, there she is.
Hi
Hi, Vivian.
everyone, I'm Vivian Doe. I'm our project manager for our supported decision-making training and information center. And so we're actually going to be hosting a supported decision-making summer training series. It's going to begin on July 22nd, and it'll be a 4-part series. And so it really goes hand in hand with what Ben was talking about today, having a co-regulator and having that support. And so if you want to come learn about supported decision making, especially as an alternative to conservatorship, please join us. We're putting all the information in the chat below. We'll learn about how to use it in finances, in education, healthcare, as well as in voting. And we'll have a great panel of professionals and self-advocates and supporters as well.
Great. Thanks, Vivian. Good. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Feel free to snag any of those links that we've put in the chat or just email any of us and we can resend them to you if you didn't get them right now. I know I wrote down a few books I got to listen to that Ben's mentioning here. So thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Ben. And we will see you. Thank you to the translators and Eric. And we will see you all next month. Or